Good afternoon and welcome back to the channel. Now, if you've been watching our Scottish tour of an autumnal Scottish tour, because not the summer Scottish tour, because it seems like I'm in Scotland quite a lot, you'll know that this morning we were photographing the red squirrels. If you've not watched that video, it's definitely worth a watch, and I'll pop a little link up on the screen now for you to click onto it and you can have a watch. I'm not on my own though. I'm with the one and only Pops.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And what we are doing now is we are in the middle of this kind of clearing in the woods, and we're photographing crested tits. Now, I've done this before and I have done a video of it in the past. And this is a setup that's been put on by Neil McIntyre. It's the same guide who we used the red squirrel hide for this morning, and we're now using the crested tits in the afternoon. And it's worth pointing out that Neil has a whole host of hides, photo sessions, tours and opportunities. So I'll pop a link to his website on the screen now. It'll also be in the description, but get on that website and have a look at what he's got to offer. There is a whole kind of myriad of very different opportunities that Neil puts on. He is an absolutely sensational photographer in his own right. He's a published photographer. He's got a book which I believe is Chasing Deer, all about the red deer and his opportunities of photographing the red deer throughout the seasons. A beautiful book, beautifully illustrated with his photographs, and well worth a look. So if you've not got a copy of that, definitely worth purchasing one. And so we're here this afternoon with the crested tits, and it's kind of it's a very, very different type of photography experience than we've done in the past. So normally when you come to anything that's kind of a paid photo opportunity, it tends to be in a hide. And if it's not in a hide, then it's usually not with wild animals. But this is very much wild animals. This is very much with the crested tit. And as you can see, no hide to be seen at all. But I'm just going to talk you through what it is that we're doing. So what Neil's got here is a feeder, and this feeder is on a green pole, okay? And basically wherever you plonk this feeder, the birds will come and they'll start to queue up on whatever branch is nearest to take their turn on the feeder. So what we've got, and I'll just put it into shot there, is we've got a little branch coming off this dead tree, and it's covered in moss and lichen. And so we're just sat at the back there. You can just see Pops in the background with our cameras on tripods, waiting for the crested tits to come in. And as they come in and they land on the shot, on the perch, we're taking the shot. And then really this is only limited by your own imagination, because you can move around this clearing and look at all the different photographic opportunities that you've got, the various different perches. There are dead trees, there are fallen trees, there are branches and things that Neil has got that you can attach to clamps, and so you can put the perches wherever you want. And so you can really go to town with the type of photography that you want to achieve here. Now, in an ideal world, we'd have some beautiful golden light, but we've not been blessed with that. In fact, 5 minutes ago, and the reason we didn't do the intro to this video any sooner, it was absolutely tipping it down. It was true Manchester weather, wasn't it, Pops?
It certainly was. The midges are out.
And now the rain stopped, the midges have appeared, and they're coming out with their knives and forks ready to feast on us.
On.
So, if crested tits is something that floats your boat, and if this is something that you're interested in, come along for the journey and see what we see. Now, what I think this is a really good opportunity for experimenting with is auto capture. Now, the way that Neil would recommend that you do this is that you would set your camera up. Oh, I don't know if that actually took any then. You'd set your camera up and you'd have it on a cable release so that you're not having to stoop and be looking through your eyepiece. And then as the birds are coming in, you're pressing your trigger on your cable release. Now, what the Nikon Z9 is capable of doing is exactly the same as that with auto capture. So I've just set auto capture up, and what it should happen is if any bird lands on that branch that I've pre-focused with, and I'm going to just see if I can show you that. So I've pre-focused any bird that lands on this branch here. There you go, there's a bird landed on it and it is taking shots. It's just took an absolute cartload of shots then. Now, not the target species, that was a cold tit that came in. And that's probably going to be the only downside to it. It's going to capture anything that lands on that branch as opposed to just being photographs of the crested tit. But I think this is a really good opportunity for utilising. There's a blue tit landed, will that land on the branch? And they've got a cold tit. I think it's a definite opportunity for utilising this method of capturing photographs. We'll see what it achieves. Now, one of the things I would say is, despite mine and Pops' appearance, you do not need to be camouflaged for photographing these crested tits. However, the midges are becoming unbearable. So we're just debating on whether we need to bob back to the car where we've got bottles of smidge and mosquito nets, which might be an option if they continue. Because they are very, very bitey.
Certainly are. Sods.
That bitey Pops is no longer speaking.
I'm frightened of them going down my mouth.
So we've got a number of shots in the bank now on this particular perch. The beauty of this type of photography is we've now got options. So we can either stay with this perch but photograph it from a different angle. Different angle will produce a different photograph, or we can mix it up and go to a different perch. I don't know what your thoughts are, Pops.
Well, I think we ought to change because we've took quite a lot.
Yeah.
It'll all be the same, won't it?
Exactly.
But, yeah.
So I think we probably move around this perch first of all, then we're not having to move the feeder. And I think the minute we move the feeder, there will be a lull. So if we just move ourselves into a different position and then take some shots from there and then move on to a different perch.
Okie dokie.
Happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
We gave it a little try as we moved around that previous perch, but they weren't landing in a direction which was favourable for the photograph. They tend to have their backs to us, and you want them to be facing towards you or parallel to you, but facing away from the tree stump, which they weren't doing. So we've gone to a different stump now, and you can see we've got very different approaches. I'm currently under the trees. I'm photographing it from this direction. I'll turn the camera around and you can see Pops is just over the way there, photographing from a different angle. And the perch that we're photographing is just in front of us there, and you can see the feeder to its side. So when it lands on the lower perches, I'm getting some really nice backgrounds. But when it lands on that higher perch, my background is a little bit white sky, which looks dreadful. So a lot of it depends on, if I kind of show you the angle, a lot of it depends on which branch it's landing on for me to be able to get the shots. It's still quite bright though. I'm photographing at 1600th of a second, and I'm keeping my ISO well down. So at the moment my ISO is at 3200. So, you know, respectable ISO levels. I'll need to do a little bit of work post-editing to get rid of any noise that's in the image. But to be honest with you, because these are frame-filling shots, I'm not having to crop in. I'm not having to deal with the noise quite the same as I would be if I was cropping in on the image. The second thing that you need to be conscious of when you're photographing in high ISO figures is not underexposing your image. So you need to really correctly expose the image, because if you try and increase the exposure in your post editing, you will introduce even more noise onto a noisy image, and that's going to present you a whole raft of problems. And then the minute you start to use denoise software, whether that be in Lightroom or whether that be through Topaz or the other platforms that people use, what all that will achieve is softening your image. And what you're looking for in these shots is detail. You want that feather detail, particularly in the crest, which is what the bird gets its name for. So you don't want to be losing any of that detail through denoising your image. So correct exposure, not having to crop in on your image, so making sure that you're the right distance away from your perch, because you can get really quite close to them, so that they're frame filling and you're not having to crop is the key. And then just experiment. So I've shot some that have been wide open at f2.8, and I've shot some that have been down at f8. And the ones that are f8 are giving me a better depth of field on the bird, but my background then becomes a little bit busy. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to starting to open my aperture up, decreasing my depth of field so that I'm really getting rid of that the busyness in the background, but trying to make sure that I've got the correct depth of field for the bird, because we're really quite close. And so depth of field is going to be critical on these shots because of how close we are to the bird with a telephoto lens. I'm just going to take this opportunity to show you how much of a pest Pops looks in his attempts to keep the midges at bay. Yeah, so I can see from this angle that Pops is at, his background's much better than my background, but the angle of the perches isn't as good. So it's just a case of moving around and seeing what works. So we switched it up again. We changed the perch this time for a perch that Neil found as we were walking into the site. And this has got lots and lots of little branches on it, but many of the branches are covered in lichen or moss. And so make some really, really nice perches. To the top, at first appearance, it looks quite busy. And I didn't think it would be much good if they landed on the upper branches of it, but actually one of the crested tits has landed at the top, and it's kind of sat in what looks a little bit like you know, a nest, a crown at the top of the tree, and it was sat like in a little nook of it. So it was framed really quite beautifully by the branches around it, and made for some really nice photographs. The light is fast fading us now. We've been here since about 2 o'clock, haven't we?
Yeah.
And it is 20 to 4. So we've probably got about perhaps half an hour more of light, reusable light anyway. It's heavy cloud, and we're not going to get anything in the way of golden light or last light of the day that's, you know, going to aid the shot. So it'll just be a case of working with what we've got. That is limiting the amount of creativity that we can do, because the fast birds, and they're moving constantly. There's one just come in then. They're moving constantly, and as a result of that, because they're constantly on the move, you've got to have fast shutter speeds. You've got no choice but to have a fast shutter speed. And so if you try and adjust your oh, they're having a little spat there. If you try to adjust your aperture to give you a little bit of extra depth of field, very quickly your ISO spirals. And for me, anything above 10,000 is not usable. So there have been moments where it has been above 10,000 and I've had to close the aperture back down again. So it means using apertures of sort of f8 are completely not usable really, unless you slow your shutter speed down. And then in all honesty, you're struggling to get them sharp, because the bird never sits still. It's constantly moving. But we've still got some time left, and we've yet to look at a perch that's at ground level. That might be the next thing that we look at. The only problem with that really is that the ground is absolutely sopping wet. When you stood still for any period of time, your feet start to sink in it, and as a result of that, us getting down low means that we're going to get wet trousers, and that's not something I want to do till right at the very end. Unless you want to get on with it now, Pops.
I don't want to get wet trousers.
You don't want to get wet trousers either.
No chance.
If he gets down on the floor, he might not get back up again.
Damn right I won't. Not in this. Not after climbing Findhorn.
He's still struggling, I think, from photographing them hair. It was a hell of a climb.
It was.
We are being eaten alive. Oh, they're feasting on us. So we've changed perches again. We're now on a really low level perch. This is just a natural little spruce that's coming out of the ground. It's got one simple one simple branch coming off it, and a little piece at the top. I'll talk you through it now as I'm looking through the camera. So I'll just talk you through this setup. We've got a perch that's really low to the ground. You can see it's really low. It's got a parallel branch coming off it, and then it's got a stump just sticking up there with lichen on the top of it. And what I'm aiming for is for the crested tit to land on that stump right at the top. And you can see there, if I break my aperture down to f2.8 from f8 that it was on a second ago, you can see that background completely disappears. If I increase my aperture, you can see that background, that's at f22. You can see that background's really quite busy, but when I stop down and I'm down to f2.8, it really buttery smooths that background out, and we get really quite some nice tones in it. You see Pops there, he's also set up at the side of me, and we're just kneeling in on the grass at the moment. How's that doing for your knees, Dad?
It's alright because it's quite spongy.
Yeah, I kind of picked this spot because it was quite spongy. The only downside I would say with it being spongy is that, well, it's not even that damp actually, is it? Says it all, doesn't it? So I'll show you kind of what it is that we're looking for in this shot. And there it is. Back of the camera there. Crested tit on top of that perch with an unobstructed background. So we'll just wait to see if any more come in. There you have it, the end to a fantastic day of photography. We reached 4 o'clock now, and despite the GoPro looking like it's still really quite bright, we've lost the best of the light. And as the sunlight's disappearing, I don't know whether you can see around our heads, there must be a million midges that are all feasting on us, and we've reached that point where we've had enough.
Yeah, but also the little birds have disappeared.
They have, they've well and truly disappeared. I think they're probably off to roost now, because we are in sort of the last sort of half an hour of decent light. It has been a sensational opportunity, and I am certain that between the two of us, I've got several thousand photographs of Cresties. I'm sure you've got something similar, haven't you?
Something similar, yeah.
And I'm sure if we've not already put them up on the screen, we'll pop them up on the screen now. And I'm sure you'll agree that these are some of the best opportunities to photograph a bird that is incredibly rare in the UK. Outside of the Cairngorms, there are not, I don't believe, any places that you can see the crested tit. They are quite common on the continent, but in the UK, they're just not there. There's little tiny pockets of them in areas such as this. And so if you want to get the opportunity to photograph this most beautiful of the tit species, then definitely check out Neil McIntyre's website, because these are some of the best opportunities that you're going to get. This is the second time that I've done this crested tit photography. It's the first time for you, Pops. What's your thoughts?
It's just been sublime, absolutely sublime. I've never seen a crested tit before, and they are stunningly beautiful.
They are, aren't they?
They really are. I know every time I see a different bird, I say it's my favourite, but boy, oh boy, these are beautiful little characters.
They are stunning, stunning little birds.
Yeah.
Quite a challenge to photograph, because they really don't stay still, do they?
No, they don't.
So, it's not the easiest of things to photograph.
Bit like gold crests, isn't it?
Yeah.
Constantly on the move.
Yeah, they do remind me, actually, in the way that they behave to gold crests. And they're also equally as challenging to photograph.
Yeah. Beautiful little song, though.
Oh, wasn't it?
Beautiful.
I'm hoping that comes across in the video, actually, because
it's stunning.
Yeah, they were really kind of chirping along, weren't they? Really vocal birds.
Yeah. What a fantastic day, son.
Perfect.
Absolutely brilliant.
Cracking end to a fantastic week.
Certainly has been.
If you've enjoyed this video and you've enjoyed this series, please make sure you give us a like. If you've not watched the other videos in this series, we've got mountain hares, we've got red squirrels, two iconic British species that are definitely worth a look. So check out those within this series of videos. If you've not yet subscribed, click that subscribe button. Costs you nothing, does wonders for the channel. It'll certainly give us an opportunity to buy some smidge and mosquito nets, because I am being eaten alive. My hand is swelling up as I'm speaking with bites all over it. If you want to show that little bit of extra appreciation, please consider doing so.
They don't taste nice.
We've got to buy me a coffee. Link will be at the bottom and in the description to the video. God, I am being gnawed on. Thank you to all those people who take the time to donate and buy us a coffee. We really do appreciate it. And from the wonderful Aviemore, and from the biting little midges, and until next time, ta-ra!